Talk, shop, pop, movies.
Ahoy there, this is Derek, the Convicted Cinephile, and if you're a convicted cinephile yourself, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel down below. On my channel, I like to talk, shop, and pop, open that is, movies and physical media. And today, as I promised, I am going to be doing my Superman film ranking. I just did my ranking for the Jurassic Park / World franchise, so please give that a watch if you haven't seen it. A couple of hot takes in there, probably a couple in here too. We'll find out. But obviously, in order to do this, I had to have seen the new James Gunn 2025 Superman film, which I did yesterday at 3 in the afternoon, nice and early as I could. I haven't been that excited for a movie in a while. I'm probably about equally excited for Fantastic Four, just to say. And I'll probably do a Fantastic Four ranking as well, because why the hell not? And I haven't seen 2015's Fan Four Stick yet, but I do own it, of course, because I'm an idiot, on Blu-ray. So I'll pop that sucker open and watch it finally, and that way it can be the last in my ranking fairly, and not just by assumption. But today we're talking Superman. I'm doing all of the solo Superman films, which means I am not including Batman vs. Superman. Spoiler alert, that would be last anyways. But I will include Richard Donner's cut of Superman 2, which I just rewatched yesterday, or day before yesterday. So we're going to do the Christopher Reeve Supermans, Superman Returns, Man of Steel, and the new 2025 Superman film. But before I start, I just want to tell everyone to please put their rankings in the comments. That would be neat. I love to see everyone else's opinions on mine. Give me your opinions about how terrible my ranking is. I know I'm right, but you can pretend yours is better. And these rankings, as always, dependent on repeat viewings, so on and so forth, are always subject to change. As of right now, here's the ranking of all of the solo Superman films. And if I'm not mistaken, there are 8 of them, if I count part 2 twice. Here, dead last as number 8, but a respectable dead last, not like Jurassic World Dominion. I like this movie. I saw it 3 times in theaters. That was probably my biggest mistake. First time I saw it, I actually loved it for the most part. Then every time I watched it after that, either at theaters or at home, so on and so forth, over the past decade or so, I have grown to quite dislike this movie for mostly the same reasons that everyone else who dislikes this movie dislikes it, and that is Zack Snyder's Man of Steel. I'm sorry, Snyder Bros. I know, don't worry, I already lost you. I'd say I lost you, but I already talked about how much I hate Batman versus Superman. But I like Man of Steel. It's honestly, not that it's much praise, it is my favorite of all of those Snyderverse movies because it's like a good solid origin Superman movie. It has a lot of ridiculous action in it to the point where it's comical with how much destruction Superman causes, which is very anti-Superman, which is the biggest fault of this movie. It's just not really what Superman is. He's more than just, hey, let's pretend he's like Jesus, which is all Zack Snyder apparently sees. Like, oh, he's God. That's all it is. No, he's a person too. He cares about everybody. He's not just a dark, brooding character who has to have the weight of being a god on his shoulders. So that's where this movie faults for me, is how they treat the Superman character. I like Henry Cavill as Superman. He never really gets to be Clark Kent like he is, but it's really just Superman in glasses, and that's always been a complaint of mine. I'm not a big fan of Amy Adams as Lois. She's okay. I love Amy Adams and like everything she's in, pretty much. But I don't know why she's just kind of like a big nothing in this movie. I don't know. She's basically all the uninteresting parts of Lois Lane put together without like the being, funny and a smartass to the point where I enjoy it, like Margot Kidder was back in the day, for example. So everything just hits a little wrong, even the stuff that's pretty good. I love General Zod. Michael Shannon is an amazing actor. His General Zod is very over the top, but menacing, so I like him. And I like Russell Crowe's Jor-El. He's cool. It was nice seeing him. I do like the design of like the ship. I almost said Fountain of Youth because I'm an idiot. Fortress of Solitude. I like the look of most of the stuff in the movie. His costume looks fine. I don't prefer it. I'm a underwear on the outside kind of Superman boy, but even if we don't have that, it's just way too dark and dingy to have it make sense, because like his suit's literally supposed to be made out of like blankets and it's not. Whatever. To each his own. I don't hate the look of it, but I don't like it that much either. Overall, the movie's fine. Like I still enjoy it on occasion. But other than Wonder Woman, it's really the only DCEU movie I can stand to rewatch more than once every 5 years, if that. So, sorry to all you Snyder bros out there, but my least favorite Superman film is Zack Snyder's Man of Steel. I always wanted to say Zack Snyder, the whole like Christopher Nolan comparison since he was involved. I always felt that Zack Snyder is not like a Christopher Nolan. Like they always say that Christopher Nolan is more of a Spielberg than he is a Stanley Kubrick. Zack Snyder is more of a Michael Bay than he is a Christopher Nolan. If that makes sense. That's how I've always seen. He's great at doing big action set pieces. They always look impressive on one way or another. Um, but I just most of the time I don't care, or I'm just not into it. Otherwise, number 7. Here it goes. This is where the list is going to get funky because I have a lot of nostalgia for much of this franchise. I grew up watching it literally since I can remember. So we'll get into number 7. One that I do need to rewatch because it's been a while, I'll be honest. That will be Bryan Singer's Superman Returns back in 2006. I actually like this movie a decent amount. The biggest flaw is that it's way too long and way too slow. But it is a good Superman story. Brandon Routh plays a fantastic Clark Kent and Superman. He does a good job recreating Christopher Reeve's character, essentially, without it being way too mimicky. Like, he sort of does it himself, but it's very much that same character. This movie basically takes place after Superman 2, pretending 3 and 4 never happened. This is like the first movie to do that. It seems like every movie, especially like horror sequels, do that nowadays. The Superman Returns, as far as I can remember, was like the first sequel to be like, those movies don't exist. Pretend it's just the sequel to the second one. Like, your Halloween 2018 goes. Other than Brandon Routh as Superman, I wasn't super into most of this cast. I do actually love Kevin Spacey as Lex Luthor. He's perfect in this movie. Say what you want about him. He's always a good actor, and he fits this part very, very well. He's a great evil douchebag billionaire. Parker Posey as his little assistant lady is great. Parker Posey's amazing in everything, and always has been. Even before she just became like a meme. Lois Lane, Kate Bosworth, I believe, was always kind of like whatever to me. And James Marsden is just kind of there. He essentially left X-Men 3 to be in this. And I don't know why. It's not like he did anything in the movie, really. He's just kind of there, and he helped Superman for a minute. But overall, as a Superman story, this is a superior movie to Man of Steel. The character of Superman is portrayed better than he is in Man of Steel. I don't watch either of them that often. I'm pretty much giving this a better ranking than Man of Steel, purely on the fact that it is a better Superman movie. Man of Steel might be a little more fun to watch sometimes, but Superman Returns will always be a better Superman film than Man of Steel. So these are kind of tied for me. I just gave the edge to Superman Returns for that reason, essentially. But all in all, both movies are a little overlong and poorly paced, in my opinion. Where do we go from here? Now we're getting into the nostalgia train. That's for sure. Like I said, I grew up on these Christopher Reeve Superman movies, and I have weird opinions about them. So number 6, if I'm not mistaken, I just rewatched this the other day. Superman 3. This used to be my favorite one because I love the scene where he fights himself, where he's evil Superman fighting Clark Kent essentially in the junkyard. I thought that was the coolest thing ever when I was like 5. This movie's not good. It's not a great movie in any means. It's an okay Superman movie. Christopher Reeve is great as always. It's nice to see them back in Smallville for the first time in these franchises, outside of when he was growing up in the first movie. So it's nice to see a little more of that. I like Lana Lang in it. I can't remember the actress who plays her, but she's in the old It TV movie too. I've always liked her in that. Annette O'Toole, I believe. There we go. Richard Pryor in there for some reason. But he's funny and he passes the time when Superman's not on screen, so I'm not going to complain. Robert Vaughn is your replacement Lex Luthor in this movie. They really just could have just had to be Lex Luthor again, and it would have been fine. But Lex Luthor's probably a smart enough character that he would have figured out everything they do in this movie on his own without needing Richard Pryor's character. So I guess that's an excuse to not have it be him. This movie seems like it was supposed to have like Brainiac as the villain, given how computer centric it is towards the end with the weird creepy robot lady that used to freak me out when I was a kid. This is a okay Superman movie. Superman as a character is great as always. Christopher Reeve plays him perfectly as he always did. The villain is okay. It's like I said, it's like off-brand Lex Luthor. This used to be my favorite, but now it's my least favorite of all the Christopher Reeve films, just because, I don't know, after another rewatch, I was like, yeah, this one's not as entertaining as I remember, but I still find it more entertaining, and it warms my nostalgia cockles a lot more than either Superman Returns or Man of Steel does, so it gets the edge for that reason. But overall, Superman 3 is not a good movie, but I still like it. Okay, number 5. This probably moved up on the list, and people are going to think I'm insane for not having this movie dead last. The first place is going to be Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. I would have originally put this after Superman 3, but until I just rewatched 3, and I have rewatched 4 like a year ago when that 4K set came out, I love Superman 4 for all the wrong reasons, and any reason is the right reason to have it in your personal ranking, and that's why it's my personal ranking and not anyone else's. If this was a which movie is the objectively best to worst movie, it'd probably be different, just like the Jurassic World list. But that's not what this list is. It's I like these movies the most for whatever stupid reason I have. And Superman 4 is one of the best so bad it's good movies ever made. The story behind the budget being slashed repeatedly to the point where they had to reuse visual effects shots multiple times. I actually did an entire video about Superman 4 a year or so ago. I think you should all go back and watch that. It's part of my Passages from the Bad Movie Bible video series that I've done a handful of. I need to get back into that. So go watch that if you want a little bit more opinion on Superman 4 and a little bit into the behind the scenes of it all and all that jazz. But Superman 4 is a car crash that I can't help but smile at for 90 minutes. 90 glorious minutes is another reason this movie is higher up on the list. It's terrible, yes. It's hilarious, yes. Christopher Reeve, still good. He's still the perfect Superman. You get Lex Luthor back in this one. I don't know how much they had to pay Gene Hackman to convince him to come back for this piece of trash, but he does. And he's great as always, too. So it's nice to have Lex and Supes back together again. You get John Cryer as Lex's nephew, who's as 80s as you can be. And then Nuclear Man, played by Chip and Dale's Dancer, as your villain. So what's not to love, other than the fact that the movie's a piece of shit. And I love it. Okay, here we are. Number 4. Feels weird having this just above Superman 4. But like I said, I love that for all the wrong reasons. Number 4 is where I will, after just one viewing, be placing James Gunn's Superman. I thought this movie was very good. It is a return to form as far as Superman the character goes on screen. This is Superman. David Corenswet plays him fantastically. All the actors on this movie fit their characters very well. The guy who plays Jimmy Olsen's great. He's funny. Perry White's good. Lois Lane, Rachel Brosnahan is perfect in this film, in my opinion. I love Guy Gardner. Nathan Fillion, he's perfect. I can't think of the actor's name off the top of my head, but Mr. Terrific is a standout in this film. Hawkgirl is cool. She doesn't get to do much, but what she does is good. But yeah, Mr. Terrific is probably the standout, I'd say, of the side characters. And I have a personal preference for Green Lantern over a lot of DC heroes, to be honest. But Mr. Terrific, having not really heard of that character before, to be honest, like I've loved superheroes my whole life, but I've always been more of a Marvel guy than a DC guy. So I've never even heard of Mr. Terrific until this movie went into production. As funny as that is to some people, I'm sure. I don't know when that character was created. I never heard of him, even way back in the late 80s, early 90s. Maybe he's newer than that. Beats me. I don't know. DC's been around a while. Either way, he's a cool character, and he was a standout in the film. Krypto, of course, was adorable. Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor is pitch perfect. You love to hate him. There's not much to complain about James Gunn's Superman. If you're a diehard Snyder bro, you'll probably hate it because it talks about being a good person and Superman is like nice and kind to people and stuff, so that might not be your jam. But that's what Superman is, and this movie displays that perfectly. It is a lot of stuff happening all at once. Not too much stuff happening all at once, I don't think, but a lot of stuff. The reason it's not higher, besides the fact that I just prefer these other movies that we'll get into, is I would say this is a good Superman movie, even a very good Superman movie, but it's a better DC movie, if that makes sense. It's a very good introduction to this new DC universe as far as the films go. You get to see Peacemaker. Sorry, spoiler alert for like a minute. He's like literally on like a news segment, so it's not like a big plot point. But it's funny to see him in there just for a minute. Another James Gunn creation, as it were. Other surprises along the way. Metamorpho. I didn't mention him. He is fucking awesome. I love Metamorpho in this movie. I can't wait to see more of him. Hopefully in a future Justice Gang related thing. That would be good. Yeah, like I said, there's not much to complain about this movie. It might be a little too funny for you serious Superman lovers. It's a very James Gunn movie. If you like James Gunn's other movies, I don't see how you won't like this. It does fit in better with like the Suicide Squad, which makes sense because it's also DC universe. It feels more like that movie, just with without all the swearing, basically. More than a Guardians movie. It's not. I don't think it's on the level of the Guardians films. I probably do like it more than Guardians 3. I'll be honest. I wasn't super into Guardians 3. I need to watch it again. But I prefer the first two Guardians films to this movie. But I would prefer this movie to his Suicide Squad, I think, and Guardians 3. So that's where it sits on my James Gunn scale, if that's a question anyone has. I've always liked James Gunn, and his love for animals, as if it weren't obvious enough just with the inclusion of crypto, is very obvious throughout pieces of this movie, and it's adorable. So I'm just going to put it there. I don't want to spoil too much of this film, but it goes in places I didn't expect, science fiction wise, I would say. They do show some of the stuff in the trailer, so it's not completely a surprise. The fact that this already is like a lived-in universe is kind of nice. They don't like over-explain everything. They're like, "Oh yeah, we're doing this now," as if it was just any other day, because it's already been established in this universe. But yeah, I highly recommend you see it. If you like superhero movies, it is very much so a superhero movie. It is a comic book movie, comic book come to life kind of movie. So it is great in that measure. But my biggest complaint, which isn't much of one, is that it feels like a better DC Universe movie than a solo Superman movie. But it's still a very good Superman movie because we know enough about the character at this point. They do explain where he comes from, just like in passing. They don't do the whole origin story thing, but you do get to see his parents show up, which is cool. No, well, show up in like hologram form, obviously. So you learn enough about him. If you know nothing about the character, you'll still learn who Superman is, but not in a direct way like the origin story films usually portray it. But that's where Superman 2025 lands, is number 4 on my list, which seems low, but not when you consider the movies above it that have been around longer than I have. 2 and 3 are weird because they're the same movie, essentially. Superman 2 is the movie I grew up watching the most. I always liked 3 the most, literally solely because of that scene where he fights himself. Other than that, I don't think I liked anything in that movie more than I liked this one. But I had Superman 2 on tape growing up, so it is the one I watched 100,000 times as a kid. The theatrical cut, mind you, the Richard Donner cut wasn't finished until I believe 2006, and I watched it when it came out, and I wasn't a big fan of it. I thought it was weird. I was watching it, trying to look for the differences, and for some reason not realizing how many there were at the time, even though I've seen the movie so much. I was more angry about the parts I like of the movie that were cut out, that made me not like the movie as much as the theatrical cut. Having just rewatched it again a couple days ago, I was watching it to absorb what they put back in as opposed to focusing on what they cut out that I enjoyed. And holy buckets, did this movie improve a lot, in my opinion. Like, it was always pretty good. But due to my rewatch, I now will have Superman 2, the theatrical cut, as my third favorite. And this is one that's like, my nostalgia is fighting me on this. because I love the theatrical cut so much. There's a lot of funny bits. There's a lot of humor added into the Richard Lester cut that I enjoy. There's nothing about the movie I dislike. The stuff they had to replace just definitely makes the movie not quite as good as it would have been had Richard Donner been able to do his perfect cut of the film, which we'll never get, sadly. It's basically just because this film had to chop up so much stuff, had to replace so many scenes with weirder scenes. How Lois discovers that he's Superman is a better scene in the Richard Donner cut, even though they never shot that scene and it had to be filled in with test footage essentially. Luckily, they even had that. Like, it's a miracle they even had that scene shot in any form. So that scene was a little weird to me because I remember it being so jarringly obvious that it was a screen test and not the actual movie, that was the only part of the movie I remembered from the Richard Donner cut. Completely forgetting about all the Marlon Brando stuff they put back in somehow. I don't know how I missed that. Because in the theatrical cut, neither Gene Hackman or Marlon Brando would come back and do reshoots. They refuse to, and Marlon Brando is a jerk and doesn't want to do anything ever. So that fits. In order to reshoot these scenes to give Richard Lester credit, he had to shoot 51% of the film. So they changed a lot of scenes, like when Lois finds out he's Superman. They changed the ending. The original ending of Superman 2 was going to be when he turns back time, and then they decided to use that for the first movie instead because they didn't have an ending essentially that they preferred. So the ending of this cut actually does use the Superman turns back time ending as opposed to the he kisses Lois and makes her forget that he's Superman, which is weird. I prefer That's probably the one thing I prefer in the theatrical cut. As dumb as it is, like that is a stupid thing, like him kissing her and having her forget. I prefer the different ending as opposed to having the same ending twice. But that's just a nitpick. But in a perfect world where Superman 1 had a different ending, Superman 2 turning back time in this version works okay. Everything else in this movie is outstanding. All the scenes with Superman and Lois when they're leaving the Fortress of Solitude at the end is amazing. How she finds out he's Superman is a very clever scene that makes much more sense than the Richard Lester version. Excuse me, too many Richards. All the scenes with Marlon Brando when he wants to take away his power and get back his power, way more emotionally impactful uh, from a character standpoint. Way better character movie than this version. So I'm sort of talking about both of them at the same time because they're the same movie essentially. I liked the Richard Donner cut of Superman 2 so much more this time that I think I will go back and watch that more often than the theatrical cut. When I want to get some member berries, when I'm hungry for member berries, I'll watch the theatrical cut of Superman 2. But when I want to watch a better Superman movie, and that's what it is, I'll watch the Richard Donner cut because it's less funny, which is fine. Like, it still has a good sense of humor. And there's alternate takes that are used that have like different line deliveries, which is funny because it's like they're all good takes of the same footage essentially. But like some of the line deliveries I prefer in the Richard Donner cut, and some of the line deliveries I prefer in the Richard Lester cut. So in a perfect world, I'd like take some of these and put them in here, sort of thing. But Zod is better. I think the villains are more menacing in the Richard Donner cut. You see them do a little more destruction in this version. And Nod, is it Nod? Dodd? I forget the big dumb guy. He's basically a comic relief character in the theatrical cut. They make him a little less stupid in this version, where he is basically just mute and big and strong. So he's a little scarier in this one. And Terrence Stamp as Zod in either version is perfection, along with Christopher Reeve and Gene Hackman, of course. And the other good thing about the Richard Donner cut of Superman 2, you don't have to listen to the blatantly obvious voiceover of Gene Hackman that isn't Gene Hackman. Like, once I learned that a lot of it was someone else dubbing over his voice, it is so obvious to the point where I laugh at it now. I love them both, but after a rewatch, Superman 2 Richard Donner cut is the superior film, both as a Superman film, and I actually prefer it now because it has so much better character work in that film than the theatrical cut. They're both good, but it hits different with the Marlon Brando scenes than the shoehorned scenes with his mother hologram in the other one. Number one, like I said, guess what it's going to be? This should be obvious to anyone who's been around long enough. I love this movie. This is the perfect Superman movie. Let's just be honest. It is Superman the movie from 1978. Everything about this movie is just like what superhero movies are. You know what I'm saying? This is the first superhero movie. It laid the groundwork, the mold of what a superhero movie should be like, and it did it perfectly, like right out of the gate. This movie had amazing action for its time. The visual effects can look cheesy now sometimes, but Christopher Reeve is such a damn good fake flyer that he pulls it off to this day. Every time I watch this, it still impresses me. There are scenes that I still can't figure out how exactly they shot it in certain ways because they were so smart with the editing of him being on wires and in front of blue screens and moving the camera instead of the actor, stuff like that. Same way they kind of shot the models in Star Wars. That's where they learned that lesson. It's perfection. You got Marlon Brando as Jor-El, who, like I said, I'm not a huge Marlon Brando fan. He's a great actor, but I've heard so many horror stories about him that I kind of lost respect to him over the years. But he's a good Jor-El. I honestly like the stuff in Superman 2 with him more than this movie almost. Just once I saw that put back in, it had a little more impact even to me. The score from John Williams is timeless to the point where they're still using it to this day in an unrelated Superman franchise. This James Gunn film still has remnants of John Williams music in there, and I can't do without it. As much as I actually like the Man of Steel score from Hans Zimmer, it's just not Superman without that John Williams score. Like it's that iconic at this point. It'd be like a Star Wars movie without the Star Wars music in it. It'd be weird. Christopher Reeve, the best casting possibly ever for a superhero film. He's a perfect Clark Kent and a perfect Superman. They are two different characters. You need to see them as two different characters. No one else has done that better than him. Brandon Routh did a good job trying to imitate his style without making it too much of an impression, and he did a good job. David Cornsweet, I feel, does a very good job, but we just don't see quite enough Clark in this movie. Hopefully, we see more in the future. And then, like Henry Cavill, I always feel he's just Superman in glasses. But Christopher Reeve broke the mold in many a way. Gene Hackman, as always, wonderful as Lex Luthor. Probably the best in this one because you get the most of him in this one. I love Otis. Mr. Luthor. Otis Berg, one of the best things ever. The plot is very simple. Lex Luthor wants more land, so he tries to destroy part of California so he can own all the beachfront property once California gets smashed apart by nukes. The plots were so simple back in those days for these superhero films. It's kind of funny comparing them to nowadays. But, that's what they could do back then. It's still impressive for that day. This movie cost something like $50 million back in 1978. That's insane. And they shot Superman 1 and 2 at the same time. So they got two movies out of it, more or less, until they had to reshoot more than half of Superman 2. This is the perfect Superman movie. It is the perfect superhero movie. I love superhero origin stories, so it is kind of, as much as I appreciate them foregoing the origin story in this film and just kind of sprinkling it throughout because I've been around long enough to know what Superman is and where he comes from and blah, blah, blah. Like Tom Holland Spider-Man. We all know how he became Spider-Man at this point, okay? Just jump into the action. He's already been Superman for 3 years kind of thing. Or the Batman is another example where they just kind of forego the origin at this point because everyone's seen it 10 times. But nothing hits me as much as a really good superhero origin story. That's why I love this movie so much. That's why I love Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. That is like the perfect example of this. I would compare James Gunn's Superman to Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. He's more of like a Sam Raimi-esque filmmaker where he has a lot of heart and a lot of humor and really good action, and he understands the characters perfectly well compared to other people who've made these movies. But Superman, the movie, nothing will ever beat it, I don't think, unless they just come out of nowhere with like the next Superman movie and it's just a pure Superman story. Let's say they do Death of Superman right this time or something like that. I don't think the original Superman movie can ever be surpassed as a Superman movie or just a movie in general, as much as I enjoy it. There she blows my ranking of all 8 Superman solo films. So here's the ranking of all of these Superman solo films. At number 1, we've got the OG, the Superman the movie, of course. Number 2, Richard Donner's Superman 2, the best back-to-back filmed thing ever done that got ruined, probably. Number 3, Richard Lester's cut of Superman 2. It's not quite as good, but I still love it. I've watched it the most out of any of these movies. Number four, I have the new 2025 James Gunn Superman. It's not the perfect Superman movie, but it is a fantastic DC movie at the very least. Number five, I have Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, the one that's so bad, I love it, making it higher than all the rest of these. Number six, I have Superman 3, the one I used to like the most as a kid, that I now realize is probably the most boring out of all those films from back in the day. Number seven, I have Superman Returns. I like the original Superman movie lineage and that character better, so that's why it just gets the edge over last place, which is still a movie I think is okay. Man of Steel from Zack Snyder. So there is my Superman ranking. Once again, what do you think about the new film? Please put your rankings down. Tell me how crazy I am for having Superman 4 above anything, let alone right in the middle of my list. Do you think it's fair to put the new Superman where I did, especially after one viewing? Because it can always change, like I said. Lists like this are subject to change. Once again, my name is Derek, the Convicted Cinephile. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel down below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Talk, shop, pop, movies.